Hello, this is Rabbi Sammy Bergman, and right now we are going to learn the 8th parak of Mishnah with Sanhedrin. The parak begins with the tragic but fascinating topic of the Ben Sorer Umoreh, the rebellious son. And the first Mishnah begins as follows: Ben Sorer Umoreh, me'imasai nasa Ben Sorer Umoreh. What range of time in the life of a child can such a person become what is halakhically defined as a rebellious son, who, as the previous chapter noted, receives skila, the punishment of stoning, a very tragic death? The Mishnah says that you can be a ben sorer or moreh for a very limited time, from the beginning that the child begins to grow 2 pubic hairs until they are fully developed in that area. For our purposes, it's worth noting the Gemara says that is from the time they reach the age of about 13 until 13 years and 3 months. What we find in these Mishnayot is that there's a very limited window of time for a person to actually become a ben sorer or moreh. Even though it seems like a general category in the Torah, really you have to really try hard to be a ben sorer or moreh. Don't try this at home. You got to get it between 13 and 13 and 3 months. That's how long you have. The Torah says that a ben sorer or moreh is called a ben, which means a son, and the Chazal learned that that means it can only be a boy and not a girl, and it can only be someone who is still a child and not a fully developed adult once you reach the age where you have a full set of hair around one's private part. At that point, you become a fully aged male, man, and you can no longer be a ben sorer moreh. Ben hakatan pater shlo balachal mitzvah, and the Gemara says a child, somebody below the age of 13, even if they have fully developed and fully matured physically, cannot be a ben sorer moreh. So the bottom line from this first Mishnah is you can only be a ben sorer moreh if you are a male from the age of 13 until the age of about 13 years and 3 months. Now the Mishnah tells us in Mishnah Beis, what do you need to do to be a ben sorer or moreh? And again, while the Torah seems to be pretty expansive, Chazal learn in Torah Sheba'al Peh, our oral tradition, that you have to do something very specific. So you have to eat a tartemar basar, which the Gemara says is 50 dinars worth of meat. It's a certain amount of meat, significant amount of meat that you have to eat. And you have to drink chatzi log yain haitalki, half of a log of italki wine. Again, a significant amount of wine. Rav Yossi omer mana basar v'log yain. There's an argument here. That's Tanna Kama. Rav Yossi says no, it's a mana basar, which is double the shear of the Tanna Kama, even more meat, a mana, and it is a log of yain. Not a chatzi log, but a full log of wine. So double the volume. So now, after we've established how much meat and wine you have to have, the Mishnah tells us what type of meat and wine it has to be. If you ate the wine for a mitzvah purpose, in the gathering of a mitzvah, for instance, on Shabbat or something like that. If you eat it, as an example, they would make a feast when they decided to lengthen a month from 29 days to 30 days. If you ate at that feast, if you eat Maser Sheni in Yerushalayim, which is 1/10 of your crop that you need to bring into Jerusalem, and that is a mitzvah. So if you eat, the Mishnah is going to say, if you steal meat and wine from your parents, even if you are the appropriate age for being a ben sorer or moreh, if you eat that meat and wine and a suda mitzvah, you cannot be a ben sorer or moreh. If you ate things that are not kosher, an avela, which is an animal that has been shechted inappropriately, or treifa, which is an animal that was torn or wounded in a compromising way before you killed it, such that it is not kosher. Shkatzim remasim, or creepy crawly creatures. The parentheses here, we'll just read it anyways, although it's not clear this is in the Mishnah. Achal teva or maser rishon shalom nil tremasa. If you eat teva, which is produce which Truma and Maaser not been taken from, or Maaser Rishon, you as a Levi, or even not as a Levi, if you eat Maaser, which is 1/10 of the crop that you give to the Levi, but there was no Truma taken from that Maaser. Maaser Sheni v'hektish lo niftu. You take Maaser Sheni, you eat it outside of Yerushalayim, or something that's been consecrated to the base of Mikdash. You haven't redeemed it. Achal darshu mitzvah darshu avera. Achal kol machav. So, and if you ate something that is either a mitzvah or an avera, achal kol machav lo achal basar. Shasa kol mashke lo shasa yayin. You eat anything but meat, or you drink any drink but wine. Eino masa ben sor mora yochal basar v'yishte yayin. You don't become a ben sora mora unless you eat meat or drink wine. And again, it has to be neutral meat and neutral wine. It cannot be meat that is in the context of a sudas mitzvah. It cannot be meat that is an avera. It has to be just standard meat and standard wine. That is the nature of it. The sin that you are doing is stealing from your parents. It is not any other sin, and it is not a mitzvah. Mishnah says here that we don't have explicitly in the Torah that it has to be meat and wine, but there is a pasuk in Mishnah indicating that solel v'soveh, like a drunkard, those terms in the Torah which describe a ben sora mora refer to meat and wine. So bottom line for Mishnah Beis is you have to eat a certain amount of meat, drink a certain amount of wine, a significant amount, and it can't be either mitzvah type meal or an avera type meal. So now, in the Mishnah Gimel, the Mishnah describes how you acquire this meat and wine. And it has to be that you steal it from your parents and you take it out of their property. If you steal from your father, but you don't take it out of your father's house. Rather, the ben sora mora eats it in the house. That doesn't constitute theft officially until you bring it out of their property. You steal it from others and eat it in their reshut. Or if you steal from other people, not your parents, other people, and you eat it in your father's house, you only become a ben sora or mora if you steal the food from your parents and you eat it outside of your parents' property. That's the kanakama. Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, says, no, it's not enough. You have to even steal it from your father and steal it from your mother. It needs to be both of their properties. And the Gemara explains here that it means the money that is used to acquire food for your mother and father. They note here that even the case is in a case where someone gives a present to your mother, such that your father wouldn't acquire it. Generally, we say halachically that mashakana isha kana bala, that if a woman acquires property, it goes to her husband. But this is a case where it's explicitly given to the mother. So to summarize, Tanakama says the only way to become a ben sora mora is if you steal meat and wine from your parents, or you steal money. Rather, you steal money from your parents and you buy meat and wine. But if you steal the money from anybody else, then that is not, you do not become a ben sora umora. Haya aviv rotzev imoena rotzev. Mishnah Dalet says, what if they don't agree? If the father says, you know what, this is a ben sora mora, let's bring him to Beit Din and stone him. And the mother says no. Or the father says doesn't want him, and the mother agrees to make the person a ben sora mora. You only become a ben sora mora if both parents agree. Rabbi Yehuda adds, so number one, we say they both have to agree to bring the child to court. Which, as you're seeing, and the more the Mishnah continue, the more unlikely the category of ben sora mora actually is to ever happen. So the first point is they both need to agree to bring their child to court and stone them as a ben sora mora. If their parents were married illegally, or actually the Gemara says here that even means, according to Rabbi Yehuda, if they aren't perfectly equal, if they're not ru'uya, that they don't have the same voice, appearance, and height. They have to be perfectly the same, the mother and father, which is obviously very rare. They have to look the same, sound the same, and be the same height. Still, Eino Nasa Ben Sora Mora, right? That's what you need to be a Ben Sora Mora. If either one of the parents is either is missing a limb, a hand, or cannot walk appropriately, or cannot speak appropriately, or cannot see, they're blind or mute or deaf or lame, you also can't be a Ben Sora Mora. It says the mother and father grab the child, which means they can't be missing their hands or feet. They have to bring him out. It says in the Torah that they bring out the Ben Sora Mora, which means they can't be lame and they have to be able to walk. It says they have to talk, and that means they can't be mute. They have to be able to point their child, and they can't be blind. The Torah says he's not listening to our voice, which means they have to be able to speak, and they can't be a deaf mute. Now the Gemara says, so first we warn them. The Mishnah now talks about the idea of how does this actually work? Assuming we meet all these qualifications, what happens? So first, after you see the person stealing the meat and drinking the wine, you see the boy acting in this behavior. So then you have to warn them and give him lashes. That's the first step. We don't kill them, the Ben Sora Mora, right away. Once you see this behavior, the gluttony, the stealing from their parents, and acquiring the meat and wine, you warn the person, you can't do this, you're going to be a Ben Sora Mora, and you give them lashes. If the person then continues to behave in this way and does it again, you steal more and eat more. Again, you steal the money to buy the meat and wine, you eat it again. So then you are judged in front of 23, which is the amount of judges needed for a capital case. However, you can only get skila if the first 3 are there. Meaning, there's 2 cases. The first case for Ben Sora Mora is the first time you see that, when you want to give the Ben lashes, you want to give the child lashes for acting in this way, you have a case in front of 3 judges. Those same 3 judges need to be present for the second case, which is the case of the capital punishment, where they're deciding whether or not to stone this rebellious child. There need to be 3 of those 23 judges. Because the Torah says, this son, B'nei Zeh, means this is the son that was whipped in front of you. You saw him get whipped. Now we're going to judge him. That's how you know you need the 3 judges from the first trial. Let's say you have a runaway child. He runs away before they conclude. So what's the case now the Mishnah talks about is you have a Ben Sora Mora, met all the qualifications, the parents are right, he stole the right amount of meat, drank and the right amount of money to buy wine. Everything is great. I mean, not great, but he's totally ready to be a Ben Sora Mora. What happens before they can conclude that he's Chayav Skila? He runs away. He runs away for a few months, and he's now 13 and a half, such that he's too old to be Ben Sora Mora. He's Pater. But if they already say he's a Ben Sora Mora, and they rule that he's Chayav Skila, so then, at that point, even if he runs away, they still execute him. And now we get to the sort of the conclusion here of Ben Sora Mora. Why do we do what we do? Right? The fascinating thing about Ben Sora Mora is that the crime that he commits doesn't seem to be one worthy of the death penalty. Stealing meat and wine, or stealing money from your parents to buy meat and wine, although bad, it doesn't usually warrant the death penalty. It's just stealing. So the Mishnah says, Ben Sora Mora Nidon Hashem Sofa. A Ben Sora Mora, a rebellious son, is judged based on his end. Yamut Zakai v'ayam Mechayav. It's better that he die while he's still Zakai, quote unquote innocent, if he hasn't actually committed anything particularly egregious. V'ayam Mechayav. And he shouldn't die when he's liable, when he does something that is worth the death penalty. When Rishayim pass away, when Rishayim are killed, rather, it's good for them and good for the world. Good for them because they don't sin anymore. Good for the world because we rid ourselves of a wicked person. And for the righteous, the opposite. When we lose the righteous, it means less mitzvos, and the world loses their tzaddik. Yain v'shena rishon hanolahem v'nala olam. Now the Gemara says something. The Mishnah says something interesting. Wine and sleep for Rishayim is good because they're out. Rishayim get drunk and they can't do what they would have done otherwise. That's good because they fall asleep. L'tzadikim ralahem v'rala olam. For the righteous, it's bad for the world and bad for them. If you have a tzaddik that's incapacitated and they can't perform mitzvos, that's bad. Pizul Rishayim hanolahem v'nala olam. When Rishayim are dispersed and spread out, and they can't get together, so then, or there's a dispute amongst them, that's good, because they can't conspire with each other. But tzadikim ralahem v'rala olam. For tzadikim, it's bad. When tzadikim can't get together, it's bad for themselves. They can't get together to do good things, and it's bad for the world. Kilusar Rishayim ralahem v'rala olam. Tzadikim hanolahem v'rala olam. The opposite certainly is the same. If wicked people get together and are united, that's bad for them and bad for the world. And the same with tzadikim, it's good for, and if they get together, it's good for them and good for the world. Shekler Rishon Ralahem Rala Olam, La Tzadikim Hanalem Banala Olam. Again, regarding quiet, if it's Rishayim have peace, that's bad for them and bad for the world. And for tzadikim, it's good for them and good for the world. So that covers Ben Sorah Umora. Again, brief review. We talked about what you need to do to become a Ben Sorah Umora, how old you have to be to Ben Sorah Umora, 13 and a half. You have to steal a certain amount of money from your parents and take it out of their property, use it to buy meat and to buy wine and drink it, and you have to have a certain amount of, has to be a neutral meal. The parents have to agree to bring them in. They have to have a certain quality to them. They're very similar, and the various other requirements here. After discussing a Ben Sorah Umora, which is someone who is judged for the endpoint, not for what they've done now, but they're judged for what their activity and behavior ultimately lead to, the Mishnah talks about other people that are Nidon al Shem Sofo. So the Habab Machter Nidon al Shem Sofo. So the Bab Machteres means someone who is tunneling into the property of another person with the intent of stealing it from them. So they dig a hole, and you see that they're trying to infiltrate this person's house, and you see that that they're going for you. They're gonna go into your house and steal. So the law is that you're allowed to kill such a person if you are convinced that there's no other way to stop them. Therefore, the Mishnah says, "Hey, bab mater v'shavar techavis." Now the Gemara says something interesting. If you are bab materes, which means that you are this type of thief who the person defending themselves can kill in order to save themselves, if in the process of stealing, this thief breaks a barrel, if such a thief cannot be killed, meaning if this thief could be neutralized without ending their life, then they have to pay for the barrel. But if they can lose their life, if you have the right to kill them for trying to kill you, then they are exempt from paying for the barrel. This is the rule of Kimle B'deraba Mine, which means that when you are liable for a very strict punishment, such as death, then and you are also liable in the process for a monetary payment, you are exempt from the payment. So this thief who is threatening the person's life in their house, and the person defending themselves can kill that thief, if in the process the thief breaks the victim's barrel, they don't have to pay for it because they're already liable for death. The victim can kill them. And Kim Lim Durav Mine means you have two simultaneous judgments. You only get the stricter one, the death penalty, and not the more lenient one, which is money. Finally, the parak ends here. These are the people who we save with their lives, meaning the Mishnah talks about people who you are allowed to kill before they commit an egregious sin. One is called rodef. Rodef means you see someone who is chasing after their friend to murder them. You can kill that person before they murder. You see somebody running after a male running after another male to sleep with them in an illegal way, to commit a homosexual act, or you see someone running after a nara merasa, someone who is already married and they are about to commit a sin, you can kill them before they do so. The Mishnah says, however, somebody who is running after an animal to live with them illegally, or to desecrate the Shabbos, or to serve Avodah Zarah, you cannot kill them before they do so. And the reason for this is that the only opportunity that you have to, usually the rule is that we don't take the law into our own hands. We wait for Beis Din. If we see someone doing an Avera, we warn them about doing it, and afterwards, if they do it, we bring them to court. In these unique situations, which are namely specifically those of arayos, illicit activity, or the realm of murder, those are the times that you can save somebody before they perform the act. But anything beyond that, even rodef achar behema, which is not considered arayos, does not qualify, and you need to wait until court to sentence them. So we have a list here again of the people whom, just like a ben soramora, who you kill before they do something bad. We have another list of somebody who's rodef baba machteres, somebody who's stealing in a way that compromises the life of the victim. We also have someone who is a rodef, who's running after another person to murder them, and somebody who is running after someone they are not allowed to marry to live with them illegally. Those are the people you are allowed to kill before they commit the act.